They thought she was just another black girl on a cheap motorbike, easy to corner, easier to punch. But at a quiet gas station on a Monday morning, Malia Carter turned their little power trip into the biggest mistake of their lives. Because while Brody and Tyler were busy acting like varsity predators, they never noticed the stance, the balance, the calm eyes of a girl trained to dismantle threats in seconds. One kick later, their bravado shattered along with their pride. The sun had barely risen over the quiet suburban stretch leading to Riverside High, casting long orange shadows across an otherwise peaceful morning. The gas station on Brook Hill Road, usually a sleepy stop before school hours, hummed softly with the sound of pumps and distant traffic. It should have been an ordinary start to the day until Malia Carter pulled in on her small blue motorbike. She parked beside Pump 3, removed her helmet, and shook out her curly dark hair. Her almond brown eyes scanned the street out of habit, the kind of instinct that comes from years of learning to stay aware. She reached for the pump handle, focused, relaxed until she heard laughter behind her, the wrong kind of laughter. Brody Bennett and Tyler Cross, two Riverside varsity boys, wrapped in bright orange Letterman jackets, stoned into the station like they owned it. The moment they spotted Malia, their smirks widened. It was the type of grin every black student at Riverside recognized instantly, the grin that meant trouble was coming. "Well, well, what do we have here?" Brody sneered loudly, making sure everyone in a 30-foot radius could hear. "Didn't know the school was letting people like her ride motorcycles now." Tyler chuckled, stepping closer, eyebrows raised in mock curiosity. "Careful, Brody. She might scratch your precious jacket with that cheap little scooter." Malia didn't look up. She refused to give them the satisfaction. Instead, she inserted the fuel nozzle into her tank with calm, deliberate movements that somehow irritated them even more. "Oh, so she's ignoring us," Brody said. "Nah, sweetheart. That's not how this works." They moved in together, blocking the front of her bike. Their bodies formed a wall of arrogance, entitlement, and casual cruelty. Tyler leaned forward until his breath touched her cheek. "Say something. Or is ignoring people just a cultural thing for you?" That was the first moment Malia looked at them, really looked. Her eyes remained cold, steady, unreadable. No fear, no flinch, no instinct to step back. Just a quiet, steady assessment. Brody's smirk flickered. Tyler frowned. Something about her silence didn't match the reaction they expected. They wanted discomfort. They wanted panic. Instead, she looked at them the way a trained examiner looks at two students who failed the same question twice. And that made Tyler snap. Without warning, he slammed his fist into the side of Malia's handlebars. The metal rang sharply, and the entire motorbike jerked hard to the left. The pump hose strained, her balance wavered, but her expression didn't. Not a twitch, not a flinch, just deeper focus. Like she was studying the angle of his punch. Like she was measuring them. Brody burst out laughing. "Look at her face. Oh, wait. She doesn't even have one. She's frozen." "Frozen?" "No. Calculating." Malia straightened the bike slowly, wiped the dust from her knuckles, then lifted her gaze. Her tone was soft but razor-sharp. "You hit the wrong girl," she said. The words sliced clean through the air. Not loud, not threatening, just a promise. Tyler blinked, confused. Brody scoffed, rolling his shoulders as if preparing for a show. They thought it was empty bravado. They thought she was bluffing. They had no idea she was evaluating their stance, their weight distribution, their reaction time, like a fighter analyzing two amateurs who mistook her silence for weakness. But Brody and Tyler weren't done. If anything, her calmness only made them more determined to push further, and much, much dumber. The morning traffic on Brook Hill Road grew heavier, and cars began pulling into the station one after another. A few adults glanced toward Pump 3, recognizing the hostile energy in the air, but as always, no one stepped in. People pretended to check their phones, clean their windshields, or study their receipts, anything to avoid acknowledging the unfolding confrontation. Silence could be cowardly, but today, it was convenient. Brody noticed the passive audience and smirked. Any attention fueled him like gasoline. He nudged Tyler and jerked his head toward the parking lot. Perfect time to make this viral, he whispered. Tyler grinned back. You thinking what I'm thinking? Brody didn't answer. He didn't need to. Moments later, their friend Evan wandered in from the convenience store entrance, sipping a neon-colored energy drink. His phone was always ready, always recording, always chasing the next stupid clip for clout. Brody snapped his fingers. Yo, Evan, get this on live. Our morning entertainment. Evan's eyes lit up. Say less. With exaggerated enthusiasm, he flipped his camera, pressed Go Live, and pointed it straight at Malia. The bright red live icon glowed on the screen, and comments began rolling instantly. Who's that girl? Varsity Boys again? Laugh my ass off, this gonna be good. She looks pissed. Brody stepped into the frame like a performer taking center stage. Welcome to the show, folks. Today's episode, mystery girl on her tiny broke-down bike thinks she's too good to talk to us. Tyler chimed in, leaning toward the camera. And we're here to help her learn some manners. Malia ignored the theatrics and placed her helmet back on the bike. She tried to turn the key, hoping to leave before things escalated further. But Brody wasn't having it. As she tried to swing her leg over the seat, Brody grabbed a fistful of her collar and yanked her backward. The force jolted her spine. The motorbike wobbled dangerously again. Gasps rose from the people nearby, but still, no one moved. Evan zoomed in, dramatic, not ally. Brody, chill. She's about to cry. But Malia wasn't crying. She wasn't shaking. She wasn't begging. Her eyes narrowed not in fear, but in irritation. That's enough, she said quietly. Brody laughed hard. Oh? Now she talks. He shoved her shoulder, making her stumble slightly. What's wrong? Didn't expect someone to stand up to you? But before Brody could deliver another shove, Evan's live stream feed exploded, fast. Bro, is that Malaya Carter? No way, look at her stance. Pause. That girl won. Region Taekwondo finals 2 years straight. Y'all better run. Like, now. The comments flooded so quickly that Evan's screen froze for half a second. What the hell? Evan muttered. People know her. Tyler blinked, confused. What? She don't look like a fighter. Brody barked a laugh, but it cracked slightly around the edges. Please. She's bluffing. Look at her. He stopped, because at that exact moment, Malia's lips curled into a slow, unnervingly calm smile. Not a mocking smile, not a scared smile. A smile with intention. A smile with meaning. A smile that said one clear thing. You boys just made the biggest mistake of your lives. She tilted her head and spoke softly enough that only they could hear. Keep the camera rolling. You're going to want proof of what happens next. A ripple of unease flashed across Brody's face. Something about that tone, steady, controlled, almost bored, gnawed at him. The livestream chat went insane. Oh, she's about to snap. Run, Brody, run. She's trained. I can tell from her foot placement. Brody's dead meat. Brody clenched his jaw, embarrassed by the sudden shift in attention. His grip tightened on Malia's collar. Nobody laughs at Brody Bennett. Nobody makes him feel stupid. And nobody, especially not a black girl on a motorbike, smiles at him like she has the upper hand. And that was exactly why Brody's anger ignited, driving him toward a decision that would push the confrontation from bad to catastrophic. The gas station's air had shifted thick, electric, expectant. Every camera mounted on every corner seemed to point directly at Pump 3, blinking red as they captured every second. Even the hum of the fuel pumps faded under the weight of what was happening. People inside their cars watched through windshields, frozen between fear and curiosity, unwilling to step out but unable to look away. Tyler stepped forward first, driven by a cocktail of peer pressure and bruised ego. The livestream comments calling him Brody's sidekick and discount bully #2 hadn't gone unnoticed. He needed to prove himself. He needed the internet to see him as more than a background character. "Get over here," Tyler hissed, lunging toward Malia. His hand clamped around her arm, rough, impatient, full of the entitlement he'd worn like a second skin his entire life. He tried to yank her away from the motorbike, expecting her to stumble, lose balance, or at least panic. But she didn't. Her feet stayed planted, her center of gravity locked, her body didn't even sway. It was like pulling against a tree rooted deep in the earth. Tyler's face twisted in confusion. "What?" Before he could finish, Brody charged in with a fury far hotter than the morning sun. His pride had been shredded by the live stream comments, and seeing Tyler struggle sent his rage skyrocketing. He didn't hesitate. He didn't think. He didn't hold back. His fist cut through the air, in a wide, aggressive arc, the kind meant to intimidate rather than strategically strike. But Brody wasn't aiming for precision. He wanted impact. He wanted to see fear. He wanted her to feel this punch. The cameras caught everything. His clenched jaw, the way his feet lifted slightly off the pavement from the momentum, the raw hate blazing in his eyes. But Malia moved before the blow could land. Not backward, not sideways in a panicked scramble, but with a clean, technical pivot smooth and impossibly fast. Her shoulder rotated just enough. Her spine angled perfectly. Her feet adjusted with practiced precision. Brody's fist sliced through empty air with a sharp whoosh, thrown off course by nothing but her flawless timing. The force of his own punch pulled him forward, off balance, stumbling past her as he barely caught himself. Gasps erupted from the onlookers. Even the live stream chat went silent for a heartbeat. Tyler stood frozen, still clutching her arm, yet suddenly terrified of what he was holding. Malia finally turned her head, expression relaxed, almost bored. Her voice sliced through the tension like a blade dipped in ice. "Are you two done being stupid?" she asked calmly. "Or do you need another minute?" The words weren't loud. They didn't need to be. The quiet confidence behind them hit harder than any punch. Brody whipped around, face burning red, part rage, part humiliation. "You think this is funny?" he spat. But what rattled him wasn't the sentence. It was the look in her eyes. She wasn't mocking. She wasn't scared. She wasn't impressed. She was evaluating them. Like opponents. Like problems to be solved. Like amateurs who had no idea how far out of their depth they already were. Tyler released her arm as if it had suddenly turned into a live wire. His lips parted, confusion and fear mixing in equal measure. "Brody." She moved weird, like she knew where you were gonna hit. Brody snarled. "Shut up." She just got lucky. Lucky? No. Nothing about that movement was luck. It was training. Years of it. Malia lifted her helmet slowly, not breaking eye contact. "Last warning," she said softly. "Walk away." Brody's fists tightened. The livestream comments flashed wildly. "Brody missed bad. She dodged like she's trained. Bro, stop. She's built different. Run." But Brody didn't run. In fact, her confidence only made him angrier, driving both boys deeper into a danger they didn't yet understand. The gas station's open lot stretched wide under the rising sun, its pavement shimmering faintly with leftover dew. The space was empty enough to give any movement a loud echo, and every shift of weight, every scrape of a shoe on concrete, seemed to ring out like a warning bell. The lone employee on duty, a middle-aged attendant behind the glass booth, had stopped pretending to check inventory. He stood frozen, eyes wide, watching the situation unfold with the same helpless dread as everyone else. Tyler, still rattled from Malia's uncanny dodge, tried to regain control of the moment. His pride screamed louder than his survival instinct. He stepped forward abruptly and grabbed Malia's wrist this time, with both hands determined to show the live stream, and himself, that she wasn't untouchable. "Got you now," he grunted. But Malia didn't resist. Not at first. She simply breathed out slow, controlled, precise. Then her body shifted. Her hips rotated sharply. Her shoulders followed in perfect sequence. Her wrist twisted in a way that redirected Tyler's grip against itself. Before Tyler even processed the movement, He found his own momentum dragging him forward. Malia's hand slipped effortlessly out of his grasp as she guided his arm into a tight, controlled lock, a crisp joint lock technique, clean, efficient, and executed with unsettling finesse. Tyler's knees buckled. Pain shot up his arm like a lit fuse. "Stop! Stop!" His scream tore through the air, raw and panicked. He dropped to one knee, unable to fight the pressure, twisting his joint to its limit. Brody's jaw nearly hit the ground. That's not normal," he stuttered, face blanching. "No regular girl moves like that." Malia's expression didn't change. She didn't smirk. She didn't gloat. She simply held the lock in place with the calmness of someone performing a warm-up drill, someone fully aware of how much worse she could make the pain and choosing not to. "Tyler," she said quietly, "you really shouldn't grab people when you don't know what you're doing." Her voice was soft, almost polite, the opposite of the violence she controlled with one arm. Tyler panted, eyes bulging with fear. "Brody, help me! Dude, she's breaking my arm!" Brody snapped out of his shock and surged forward, but Malia moved again, faster this time. She released Tyler in a single, smooth motion, letting him collapse backward onto the pavement. Then she pivoted, placing one foot behind her, shoulders squared, hands raised. A stance, a very specific stance. Even anyone unfamiliar with martial arts could see it wasn't accidental. Her weight distribution, her centerline alignment, her raised guard and angled hips. It was unmistakably a Taekwondo fighting stance, refined, disciplined, practiced. Evan's livestream exploded instantly. "Yo, that's TKD stance. She's black belt level. Look at her form. Brody, don't do it." No way she's been hiding this the whole time. The viewers recognized what Brody and Tyler didn't. Malia wasn't lucky. She was trained. Deeply trained. Brody stared at her as if seeing her for the first time. His confidence faltered, replaced by something dangerously close to fear. Malia tilted her head, eyes locked on his. "I warned you," she said, voice still calm, still steady, "but you didn't listen." Then her tone sharpened just enough to sting. "I told you this was a mistake." Brody swallowed hard. His fists shook not from anger this time, but from the terror of losing face in front of hundreds of live viewers. Malia lowered slightly into her stance, grounded and ready. "Like I said," she finished, "you hit the wrong girl." "Told you already," she said coldly. "You boys don't listen." Humiliated, furious, and pushed by the roaring live stream audience, Brody made a reckless choice. He charged at her with everything he had. The fight drifted toward the large digital price board, standing tall beside the pumps, its glowing numbers reflecting off the pavement. Shadows stretched long beneath it, framing the confrontation like a stage lit for a brutal performance. Tyler was still on the ground, gripping his arm, cheeks streaked with pain and disbelief. But Brody, humiliation burning hotter than the morning sun, refused to stay down emotionally, even if he'd been knocked off balance physically. His breaths came sharp, fast, jagged with frustration. The live stream comments flashing on Evan's phone only poured gasoline onto his anger. Brody got dodged. As 9, she locked Tyler like a toy. "Laugh my ass off. Brody better redeem himself, or it's over for his reputation. Bro, don't let a girl fold you like that." Each comment stabbed deeper than any physical hit. Brody was the type who lived off reputation, attention, dominance. And right now, hundreds of people were witnessing him lose all three. He snapped. With a guttural yell, Brody lunged forward, arms flailing in a messy blend of anger and desperation. There was no technique, no aim, just wild, chaotic swings, driven entirely by ego. He wasn't trying to win, he was trying to erase his humiliation. But Malia saw everything, the tension in his shoulders, the sloppy footwork, the way his weight pitched far too forward. He telegraphed every intention before his body even moved. To her, his attack was slow motion. Malia pivoted lightly on her left foot, grounding herself with effortless precision. Her right leg lifted not high, Not dramatic, just enough to chamber the strike with perfect form. Then she snapped. A flawless side kick. Her heel drove straight into Brody's torso, right below the sternum, right where his balance was weakest. The impact reverberated like a thunderclap. Brody's entire body jerked backward, his breath ripping from his lungs, as if someone had vacuumed the air from his chest. He didn't just stumble, he flew. His back slammed against the metal pole of the price board, bending him briefly around it before he crumpled to the ground like dropped laundry. His phone skittered across the pavement, spinning to a stop near the curb. A collective gasp surged through the gas station. Evan's livestream shook as he tried to follow the action. Then the comments exploded. Brody just got sent to Jesus. No way a sidekick did that. She's built different. Brody officially got folded like a lawn chair. End quote. Varsity boys ain't varsity today. Tyler stared wide-eyed from the ground, mouth slack, unable to fathom how quickly Brody had been dismantled. His earlier bravado evaporated, replaced with something far more primal: fear. Malia lowered her leg with balance so controlled it looked choreographed. She didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She simply exhaled long and steady, as if removing the last traces of restraint she'd been holding on to. Brody wheezed, struggling to push himself upright, fingers clawing at the pavement. He looked up at her with a mixture of rage and dawning horror. You freak!" he coughed, clutching his ribs. Malia only tilted her head. "You charged like a toddler," she replied calmly. "What did you expect?" The live stream went insane again. Brody's ears burned red, his face twisted by humiliation far worse than pain. Being hit wasn't the problem. Losing wasn't the problem. But losing publicly? On camera? To a girl he had mocked? That shattered him. He staggered to his feet, wobbling. The price board pole rattled behind him. Tyler tried to warn him. "Brody, man, stop. Stop. She's not normal." But Brody wasn't listening. Humiliation had eaten through his reason like acid. Live stream chat erupted across the screen. Brody getting cooked live. Brody is done. He better chill before he dies. End quote. But humiliation is a dangerous fuel, and instead of calming down, Brody's shame only drove him into an even more reckless, rage-blinded decision, one that would escalate the fight into something far more dangerous. The tension at the gas station thickened into something sharp enough to cut. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. The confrontation had already spiraled far beyond a stupid act of bullying, but Brody's humiliation had crossed the point of no return. He staggered away from the price board, clutching his ribs, eyes burning with something darker than anger. He wanted revenge. Not dominance, not attention. Something far more reckless. Tyler watched him limp toward the utility crate beside the cashier booth, an open container filled with odds and ends, squeegees, plastic holders, and a pair of metal rods used to prop up promotional signs. His face drained of color. Brody, don't," Tyler stammered. "Man, this is already bad. Don't make it worse." But Brody didn't hear him. Or rather, he didn't want to. His pride screamed louder than logic, louder than fear, louder than the hundreds of viewers watching him get dismantled in real time. The live stream comments were still pouring in like gasoline on an open flame. Brody getting packed. No way he let her kick him like that. He needs to redeem himself, or he's done. Uh-oh. He's grabbing something? Brody's fingers wrapped around the cold metal pole. The moment he lifted it, the atmosphere cracked. He turned back toward Malia. Teeth clenched so hard, his jaw trembled. His chest rose and fell in explosive bursts, like a bull ready to charge. "You think you're tough?" he growled. "Let's see how tough you are when you're not the only one hitting." Evan's phone trembled in his hand. "Brody, bro, stop. You can't, this is gonna get you arrested." But Brody was past the point of reason. He let out a primal yell and sprinted toward Malia, raising the metal rod high above his head. Anyone could see what he intended. This wasn't a threat. This wasn't intimidation. It was a strike aimed to injure, maybe worse. Gasps erupted across the station. A woman by pump 1 covered her mouth. The attendant behind the glass froze with horror etched onto his face. For a split second, the world narrowed into one deadly line. Brody's downward swing, fueled by rage, the metal glinting under the sun, the pole slicing through the air toward Malia's skull. He meant to hurt her, badly, but he never reached her. Just before the weapon connected, Malia moved explosively, fluidly, with a precision that felt almost supernatural. Her feet lifted off the ground as she twisted into a 180-degree spinning kick, the kind only a trained fighter could execute with such balance and power. Her heel struck the metal rod, not Brody, redirecting it with a sharp metallic clang that echoed across the station like a warning siren. The impact tore the weapon straight out of Brody's hands. It flew several feet, clattering violently across the pavement. The live stream shook as viewers detonated in shock. No way she did a spin kick on a weapon. So cinematic I can't breathe. She just disarmed him like a stunt double. Brody is done. She's a demon. Brody stumbled backward, stunned not just by the counter, but by the realization of how effortlessly she had stopped him. Malia landed lightly, barely winded, her eyes locked onto his, cold and razor-sharp. "Trying to kill someone now?" she said quietly. "That's where your pride took you." Brody's face went pale. Tyler swallowed hard, finally understanding that this wasn't a fight anymore. It was survival. But for whom? Malia stepped closer, her voice low but lethal. "Are you really planning to kill someone?" What none of them realized was that the spinning kick hadn't just disarmed Brody. It had caught the attention of someone extremely important, someone who recognized that technique instantly. At the far edge of the gas station, near the small booth where the security cameras were monitored, a woman in a navy blue uniform stepped out, her eyes locked on the chaos unfolding around Pump 3. Her posture was rigid, disciplined. The embroidered patch on her sleeve read, "Riverside Taekwondo Academy." Senior instructor her name was Sandra Kim. She wasn't supposed to be here. She had only stopped by to pick up a package, scrolling casually through her phone as she waited until a familiar live stream popped up on her feed. She hadn't intended to click it, but the thumbnail, a girl cornered by 2 varsity boys, a stance she recognized instantly. Her breath caught. No, it couldn't be. But as soon as she saw the spinning kick disarm Brody like a choreographed sequence straight out of a national championship, she knew it was Malia Carter, her former prodigy, a black belt second dan, a girl she personally trained for 6 years. Sandra moved quickly, urgent steps, jaw tight, heart pounding from equal parts fear and pride. She pushed through the small crowd, inching closer to the confrontation, her eyes never leaving the girl who was handling 2 enraged varsity boys with frightening composure. "Malia," she whispered to herself, "what have they done to you?" As she approached, Malia was squared off with Brody again, her stance perfect, breathing stable, eyes locked and unblinking. Tyler, still shaken but desperate to regain control, limped toward her with a choked yell. "You're dead! You hear me? Dead." Sandra immediately stepped forward. "Hey, stay back." But Tyler didn't hear her. Brody didn't notice her. Evan didn't even glance up from the live stream. Their tunnel vision was fixed entirely on Malia, who remained impossibly calm. "You two really don't want to do this," Sandra warned, raising a hand. "I'm telling you," Brody snapped. "Lady, stay out of it." Sandra's eyes sharpened. Wrong choice, she thought. She turned to Malia. "Carter," she called softly. Malia's eyes flicked to the side only for a heartbeat, but enough to confirm she heard the familiar voice. Sandra stepped closer, speaking low, meant only for Malia. "I saw the live stream. I recognized the stance, the footwork, the kick." Her voice softened with pride. "It's really you." Malia's jaw tightened, not out of fear, but with the weight of someone trying very hard not to unleash everything she knew she was capable of. Sandra leaned in just enough for only Malia to hear. "You're holding back. A lot." Brody, furious from being ignored, charged again with a wild yell. Sandra didn't even flinch. She'd seen this countless times, angry, untrained amateurs thinking rage could beat skill. She murmured, almost like a coach in the middle of a sparring match, "I haven't even used 20% of my strength yet." The words hit Malia deeper than any insult Brody had thrown. Malia inhaled, exhaled, and her stance shifted subtly, but unmistakably. Sandra's lips tugged into a grim, knowing line. Tyler shouted, "Stop whispering! Fight us like a real person!" Sandra shot him a glare sharp enough to cut steel. "She's trying not to break you," Brody scoffed. "Break us? Her? You think she—" Before he could finish, Malia stepped forward with a precision that froze him mid-sentence. Sandra stepped back, giving her space. Her voice, calm and absolute, cut through the hot morning air. "Finish it clean, Malia." For the first time, true panic flickered across Brody's face. Evan's livestream chat detonated. Oh God, her teacher showed up. Plot twist in real life? This is about to get BAD for the boys. She hasn't even used 20%? Malia's expression hardened. Not cruel, not angry, just resolute. She was done holding back. Sandra whispered one more time, almost proudly, "You haven't even shown them what real control looks like. Thanks for watching together." And the better in the soul. And with that final push from her former instructor, Malia made her decision. She would end this quickly, decisively, and cleanly. The glass storefront of the gas station convenience shop reflected the chaos like a warped mirror. Malia's compact frame squared off against two varsity boys who suddenly looked much smaller than they had 10 minutes earlier. Neon signs flickered behind the glass, casting streaks of red and blue across the pavement. The atmosphere thrummed with a tension that felt almost electric. Sandra stood to the side now, no longer intervening, simply observing, her eyes sharp with the silent pride of a teacher watching a student step into her full power. Her arms folded, stance rooted, ready to stop Malia only if things escalated into true danger. But she didn't need to. Malia was in complete control. Brody didn't understand that. Tyler didn't understand that. But Sandra did. And the live stream audience definitely did. Brody, panting heavily, staggered forward once more. His bravado had cracked. Fear seeped into his voice. I swear if you don't stop, Brody, don't," Tyler warned. But Tyler himself was barely functional, clutching his previously twisted arm, limping, eyes wide with the dawning realization that they had picked the wrong girl on the wrong day. Malia inhaled, steady and calm, her gaze sharpened, her shoulders lowered, her muscles coiled like a drawn bow. She'd entered finishing mode. Tyler, desperate to salvage the situation, threw himself at her again, not with strategy, not with strength, just panic. He lunged, reaching for her arm. Malia moved in a blur. Her first strike wasn't even a strike, it was a joint lock, perfectly executed. She caught Tyler's wrist mid-lunge, twisting in a smooth arc that redirected his momentum into a controlled takedown. The motion was clean, efficient, beautiful in its precision. Tyler's knees buckled instantly. A sharp cry tore from his throat. Before he even hit the ground fully, Malia stepped past him, sweeping her leg in a low, circular motion. A leg sweep so clean it looked like something out of a martial arts demo reel. Tyler hit the pavement with a thud, air exploding from his lungs as he sprawled helplessly across the concrete. The livestream comments went nuclear. Tyler just got deleted. She's sweeping dudes like dust on the floor. Bro, she's not human. This is a Taekwondo finisher combo. Brody froze. For the first time, real fear, raw and unfiltered, washed across his face. "Malia, wait, just chill," he stammered, stepping backward. But it was too late. She wasn't attacking out of anger. She wasn't attacking out of revenge. She was simply ending the threat. Brody raised his fists again, though they trembled violently. His voice cracked. "Don't come near me. I'm still, I can still." But Malia moved. She stepped in with silent speed, pivoted sharply, her heel rising in a powerful arc, a hook kick, textbook perfect, fast, decisive, controlled. Her heel connected with Brody's shoulder, not his face, not his ribs, not anywhere that could cause real damage, because Malia wasn't out to destroy him, just to stop him. The impact spun Brody halfway around before he crashed onto the pavement beside Tyler, his breath choking out in short, panicked bursts. He tried to lift himself, arms shaking, eyes wide with terror. What are you?" he gasped. A question from fear, not anger. A question asked by someone who finally realized the monster in the room wasn't him, it was the girl he tried to bully. Even the gas station attendant whispered through the intercom, "Dear God." Sandra's expression didn't soften. She simply nodded once. This was the technique, the precision, the discipline she had trained into Malia for years. Malia stood over the fallen boys, breathing, controlled, gaze cold and unwavering. She wasn't gloating. She wasn't celebrating. She was simply done. Brody's trembling voice shook the air. What are you?" But before Malia could answer, before Sandra could speak, sirens wailed in the distance. A police cruiser swung into the station, lights flashing, and things were about to get a lot more complicated. The sharp wail of sirens cut through the morning air, slicing into the tense silence that had settled over the gas station. Red and blue lights splashed across the pavement, reflecting off the glass storefront like frantic pulses. A patrol cruiser swerved into the station, tires screeching as it stopped at the entrance. Officer Grant stepped out, broad-shouldered, square-jawed, the kind of cop who always assumed he understood a situation before actually assessing it. His hand went straight to the holster out of reflex, scanning the scene with narrowed eyes. What he saw, two teenage boys lying on the ground, bruised, breathless, terrified. A girl standing over them, calm and composed. A crowd watching in stunned silence. A live stream still rolling, phones pointed her way. Grant didn't see the hours of harassment. He didn't see the weapon. He didn't see the restraint. He only saw what fit a story he knew too well. He barked, "You! Hands where I can see them!" Malia turned slowly toward him, breathing steady. Her expression didn't change, but Sandra stepped forward quickly. "Officer, wait!" Grant raised a palm, cutting her off. "Ma'am, stand back. I've got two injured minors here." Brody, shaking and desperate to save face, seized the moment. "Officer, she attacked us. She's crazy. Look what she did." Tyler joined in, clutching his arm dramatically. "She broke my arm. She jumped us for no reason." The crowd murmured in confusion. Evan lowered his phone slightly, guilt flickering across his face for the first time. Grant's jaw hardened. The narrative had landed exactly where Brody wanted it. "Malia Carter?" Grant demanded. "Step forward." Sandra shoved past a startled customer. "Officer Grant, you are not listening. I said step back," Grant snapped. His voice echoed across the cement like a whip crack. He turned fully to Malia. The streetlights glinted off the handcuffs he now held. "On your knees," he ordered. "Hands behind your head." A ripple of shock moved through the crowd. Malia didn't move. She didn't flinch. She just breathed, calm, silent, composed. Grant interpreted the stillness as defiance. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Sandra finally exploded. "Stop! You're arresting the wrong person." Her voice carried across the station so sharply that even the bystanders jumped. She stepped directly between Malia and the officer, her posture fierce enough to crack concrete. Grant glared. "Ma'am, you're obstructing?" "No," Sandra snapped. "I'm correcting your mistake." The officer's brows knitted tightly. "Those boys are injured, and she didn't injure them out of aggression." Sandra shot back. She defended herself. They ambushed her. They recorded it. They hit her first. They used a weapon. Brody tried to sit up, face twisting in panic. "She's lying. She's covering for her freak student." Sandra's eyes sharpened. "I'm her instructor." "Yes, and if you think she's dangerous now, imagine what would have happened if she hadn't been trained to hold back." Grant hesitated. Just for a second. But a second wasn't enough. "Enough," he growled, tightening his grip on the cuffs. "I need facts, not stories. If she's innocent, she'll walk later. Right now, she's the only one standing." He stepped forward again, jaw set, ready to force Malia to the ground. Malia didn't resist. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't show anger. She simply looked at Sandra, waiting. Sandra understood exactly what that look meant. "We need proof." Sandra shouted, voice echoing like a blade. "Stop. You're arresting the wrong person." But Officer Grant didn't care about words. He wanted evidence. And fortunately for Malia, this entire disaster had been caught on more cameras than he realized. Officer Grant's hand hovered inches from Malia's wrist when a frantic banging on the glass door of the convenience store cut through the air. "Officer! Officer, come here now." It was the station owner, Mr. Patel, waving with both hands, urgency written all over his face. Grant blinked, torn between his instinct to finish the arrest and the unmistakable panic on Patel's expression. Sandra seized the moment. "Evidence," she said sharply. "You wanted it? There it is." Grant hesitated, then lowered the cuffs. "Fine. Everyone inside," he ordered. He gestured for Brody, Tyler, Evan, Sandra, and Malia to follow him toward the small security room at the side of the building, where dozens of monitors flickered in grayscale. Inside, the temperature felt 10 degrees colder. The air buzzed with anticipation. No one spoke. Patel pulled up the recording from 10 minutes earlier, and the room fell silent. The footage began with Malia calmly fueling her bike. No aggression, no provocation, just a girl minding her own business. Then Brody and Tyler swaggered into the frame, blocking her path, mocking her, crowding her space. Sandra folded her arms, eyes locked on Grant's reaction. Brody shifted uncomfortably. Tyler swallowed hard. Grant's brows furrowed as the video continued. Tyler's shove, Brody's first punch, Malia's restraint, the failed punches, the ambush from behind, the metal rod being raised over her head and then the spinning kick. Patel replayed it twice. "That," Sandra said, voice measured, "was self-defense. Controlled self-defense." Grant's jaw slackened. He watched the footage again, this time slower. Malia never struck first. She avoided. She redirected. She only attacked when cornered. Even her kick with the hook heel had been aimed at the shoulder, not the head. The truth unfolded clearly. Brody and Tyler weren't victims, they were predators, and they had picked a target they weren't prepared for. Malia remained silent the entire time, her face calm but unreadable. But Brody was falling apart. That's edited," he blurted out. She must have," Patel snapped. "This is live feed footage, no edits." Tyler's face drained of all color, his knees wobbled. Grant finally turned to Evan. "You recorded this too?" Evan looked at his shoes. "Yeah, and it was live." "Live?" Grant repeated. Evan swallowed, terrified. "The whole school saw it. It's already on 5 different student accounts. And Reddit. And maybe TikTok." Sandra exhaled a single, sharp breath. Half disbelief, half satisfaction detonated in the room like a grenade. The event was no longer a private incident. It was viral, public, undeniable. Grant stared at the boys, disgust replacing his earlier assumptions. He turned to Malia, his stance no longer authoritative, no longer accusatory. Slowly, he lifted the cuffs, but not toward her. He placed them back on his belt, and for the first time that morning, he looked her directly in the eyes, not as a suspect, but as a victim. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "You were right." The room went still. Malia blinked but didn't gloat. She simply nodded, calm as ever. Grant continued, voice lower than before. "I should have listened. What they did is assault, and the weapon escalates it to something even more serious." Brody opened his mouth to argue again, but Tyler pulled him back by the sleeve, whispering, "Bro, stop. It's over." Grant straightened his uniform and addressed the station owner. "Please save all copies of the footage. This is going into a full report." Sandra's shoulders relaxed slightly, not fully, but enough to show she trusted the tide had turned. Outside, students from Riverside High continued sharing the live stream, stitching it, reacting to it. Malia Carter just bodied 2 varsity guys. Justice served live. She's a black belt. Of course she won. He and Tyler finna get expelled. The storm had begun. Grant unclipped the cuffs fully and said the words that sealed the reversal. I'm sorry, kid. You were right. But the fallout didn't stop there, because once the school administration saw the footage, the shockwave hit Riverside High like an earthquake. Riverside High's administrative conference room had never felt so suffocating. The long oak table, usually reserved for mundane budget meetings and teacher evaluations, now hosted a far more volatile gathering. The room hummed with low murmurs as parents, staff, and committee members filed in. At the head of the table sat Principal Monroe, stiff-backed, hands folded tightly, as if holding the entire school's reputation together by sheer force. The air felt charged. The video from the gas station had already spread like wildfire across campus. Students whispered in hallways. Teachers replayed the clip during breaks, and parents flooded the school hotline with frantic calls. The administration had no choice but to call an emergency disciplinary hearing. On one side of the table sat Malia, calm but silent, flanked by Sandra Kim and her guardian. On the opposite side sat Brody's parents and Tyler's mother, tense and defensive, whispering furiously among themselves. Principal Monroe cleared his throat. We are here today to address a violent altercation involving several Riverside students. As always, the school adheres to a strict zero-tolerance policy. Any student involved in physical violence is subject to immediate suspension pending review. Sandra's jaw tightened, but she remained silent. Monroe gestured to the large screen behind him. We will now review the footage. The room dimmed, and the video played. The bullying, the pushing, the taunts, the metal pipe, and finally Malia's controlled, precise, defensive responses. Gasps punctuated the silence like sharp needles. Even members of the discipline board shifted uncomfortably when Brody lunged with the metal rod. But when the lights came back on, Monroe exhaled stiffly. While we acknowledged the boy's misconduct, Malia still engaged in physical combat. Under our zero-tolerance policy, Sandra snapped. She defended herself. Brody's mother, a tall woman with a permanent scowl, immediately shot back. Self-defense? You call those kicks self-defense? She attacked my son like some trained. She stopped herself. Realizing her wording, Sandra raised an eyebrow. Trained what? Mrs. Bennett flustered. She's trained, isn't she? She used techniques. Monroe frowned. Mrs. Bennett, are you saying your son was aware of her training? A slip. A dangerous one, Mrs. Bennett stammered. Brody told us before that she was one of those martial arts girls, he said. He said he and Tyler wanted to test her. The room froze. Even Brody's eyes widened. Mom! But it was too late. A member of the discipline board leaned forward. So your son intentionally provoked a fight with a trained student, knowing she might defend herself? Another leaned in. This directly contradicts the claim that she was the aggressor. Tyler's mother buried her face in her hands. Principal Monroe rubbed his temples, visibly shaken by the unexpected revelation. His tone softened, uncertainty creeping into his previously rigid stance. We may need to reassess the situation. A murmur rolled through the room. Sandra allowed herself the smallest, quietest breath of relief. Mrs. Bennett's unintended confession hung in the air like a detonated grenade, and the room's energy shifted instantly. Now forced to reconsider everything, the disciplinary board prepared for a decision that would change the entire school's social order. The midday sun poured over Riverside High's courtyard as hundreds of students gathered, buzzing with anticipation. Whispers rippled across the crowd, punctuated by bursts of disbelief and excitement. Word had spread quickly. The administration was about to announce the final disciplinary action regarding the gas station incident that had turned the school upside down. Principal Monroe stepped onto the small outdoor podium, flanked by the assistant principals and several counselors. The microphone screeched once before stabilizing, and a hush fell over the courtyard. Students, Monroe began, voice firm but strained. Riverside High does not tolerate violence, harassment, or racial targeting of any kind. After thorough review of the evidence, both the security footage and the live stream, we have reached a decision. All eyes turned toward Brody, Tyler, and Evan, standing off to the side under faculty supervision. Their faces were pale. Brody's hands were clenched so tight his knuckles looked bloodless. Monroe continued, "Effective immediately. Brody Bennett and Tyler Cross are suspended for the remainder of the semester." Gasps erupted from the students, and, Monroe added, "They are hereby removed from all varsity athletic teams through the next academic year. They will not be permitted to participate in games, practices, or school-sponsored athletic events." The courtyard exploded in noise. Some students cheered openly. Others stared in disbelief. Varsity athletes exchanged shocked looks. This was unprecedented. Brody's face went crimson. The blow to his pride was catastrophic. Varsity wasn't just a team. It was his identity, his social armor, his entire world. Monroe raised his hand for silence. As for Evan Blake, due to his active participation in the humiliation and filming of the incident, though he did not personally initiate physical harm, he will complete 40 hours of mandatory community service and attend a school-approved ethics workshop. Any future violations will result in stronger consequences. Students murmured again. Evan swallowed hard. Guilt etched into every line of his face. He hadn't expected real punishment yet. Now he was the only one still standing, forced to face the weight of his decisions without the shield of bravado. Monroe's tone grew heavier. "Let this be a reminder. Actions have consequences, and Riverside High will hold every student accountable for harm they cause physically or emotionally." The announcement concluded, and Monroe stepped back from the podium. Immediately, clusters of students erupted into frenzied chatter. Malia really took them down, and serves them right. Varsity's gonna be a mess without them. They thought she was an easy target. Look how that turned out. Brody stormed away from the crowd, fists shaking, face twisted with humiliation and rage. Tyler limped after him, eyes darting nervously as if expecting someone to record his shame. When they reached the edge of the courtyard, Brody spun around, his voice low but venomous. "This isn't over," he hissed. "I don't care what the school says, she's gonna pay for this. I swear it." Tyler flinched. "Brody, man, after everything, just stop." But Brody wasn't listening. His ego had taken a hit too deep to process. All he felt now was the burn of humiliation and the desperate need to reclaim his power. He stormed off the campus grounds, muttering threats under his breath, unaware that students were already recording him again. Brody's vow for revenge cut through the air like a blade, but he had no idea the next blow wouldn't come from Malia, because the real shock waiting for him would come from inside his own home. The atmosphere inside the Riverside Taekwondo Academy felt entirely different from the chaos of the gas station or the tension of the school hearing. Here, the air smelled faintly of pine floors and clean sweat. Soft echoes of kicking pads, counting rhythms, and children's laughter bounced around the room like musical notes. For the first time in days, Malia felt her muscles loosen. This studio had always been her sanctuary, its bright lighting, neatly lined belts, and shelves of trophies grounding her in discipline and purpose. And now, it was about to become something even more meaningful. Sandra stood at the front of the class, arms folded proudly as she observed the small group of young students stretching on the mats. Her sharp features softened when she turned toward Malia. "Everyone," she announced, "I have something special today." The children, 6 energetic students between ages 8 and 10, looked up with wide eyes. "This is Malia Carter," Sandra continued, gesturing toward her. "You might have seen her around the studio before. As of today, she'll be joining us as an official assistant instructor." A wave of excited chatter broke out across the mats. Malia blinked. "Sensei, I didn't know you were making this official." Sandra smirked. "After what you handled last week? You've more than earned it." A shy grin tugged at Malia's lips, rare but genuine. The children swarmed her instantly. "Miss Malia, can you teach us the spin kick? Are you really a black belt 2 levels?" Did you really stop two boys by yourself? Sandra clapped her hands once. All right, little warriors. Questions later. Let's start warm-ups. But one small girl, tiny, nervous, with a blue belt barely tied correctly, lingered behind the group. She tugged gently at Malia's sleeve. Miss Malia? Malia knelt to meet her at eye level. Yes, sweetheart? The girl's eyes shimmered. Were you scared? She swallowed. When they hit you? The room seemed to pause. For a moment, the chaos, the threats, the pain of that day flickered through Malia's mind. Brody's fist, Tyler's grip, the metal rod arcing toward her head. But none of those memories were what mattered right now. What mattered was the trembling voice in front of her. Malia rested a gentle hand on the girl's shoulder. Fear isn't bad, she said softly. Being scared isn't wrong. The girl's breath hitched. Malia smiled, a small, steady smile filled with quiet strength. Not standing up, she continued. That's the only thing that's wrong. The girl's face brightened with a courage she hadn't shown before. I want to be strong like you. Malia brushed a curl from her forehead. You already are. Now let's train, okay? The girl nodded enthusiastically and dashed back to the group. Sandra, watching from the sidelines, exhaled with pride. You're a natural, she said. Malia shook her head lightly. They're the brave ones. I just help them see it. Sandra smiled. Maybe, but you're going to change lives here. And for the first time since the incident, Malia felt something new lifting inside her chest. Hope. A future. A purpose beyond surviving. But while Malia's world was healing, the storm brewing on the other side of town was far from over, because as peace returned to Malia's life, trouble was only beginning to unravel in the home of the boys who had tried to break her. Brody's family was about to make a discovery that would shake everything he thought he controlled. The Bennett household had always been immaculate, polished floors, gleaming countertops, framed photos of Brody holding trophies, medals, varsity jackets. But tonight, the house felt hostile, heavy. The air vibrated with tension thick enough to choke on. Brody sat rigid on the leather couch, arms folded tight across his chest, lips pressed into a thin line. His mother hovered protectively beside him, while his father, usually calm, stoic, silent, paced the living room like a storm barely contained. A man in a suit, their family lawyer, sat across from them with a tablet in hand. He had been reviewing the incident, preparing a defense, but the more footage he watched, the deeper the lines in his forehead grew. Mr. Bennett finally stopped pacing. "Play it again," he ordered. The lawyer hesitated. "Sir, we've already reviewed play. It again." The lawyer sighed and tapped the screen. The gas station footage rolled. Brody, shoving Malia, throwing the first punch, lifting the metal rod. His father's fists clenched with every second that passed. His mother's face twisted defensively. This isn't the full story. Brody was provoked. Everyone online is overreacting. But Mr. Bennett's expression hardened. Oh, this is exactly the full story. Brody's jaw flexed. Dad, you don't understand. She made us look stupid. She was acting tough. Enough. The single word cracked through the room like a whip. Silence. Mr. Bennett turned slowly toward the lawyer. You said there was more. The lawyer swallowed. Yes. Once the live stream spread, former students came forward with additional recordings. Brody's stomach dropped. What recordings? The lawyer tapped again. New footage appeared, different days, different angles, different victims. Brody, cornering a freshman behind the gym. Brody shoving a disabled student's lunch tray onto the floor. Brody mocking a girl for her accent. Brody ripping a sketchbook from a kid and throwing it into a puddle. Brody laughing while someone else cried. Every clip hit like a punch to the chest. His mother gasped, hand flying to her mouth. Brody, tell me these aren't real. But Brody couldn't speak. Mr. Bennett's voice dropped to a deadly quiet. How long has this been going on? Brody stammered. I didn't. It wasn't, Dad. Those were jokes. Everyone knew I didn't. Stop lying. His father's voice was sharp enough to break him. The lawyer closed the tablet. Sir, with this much evidence, the school could escalate the case, and the victims' families may pursue harassment charges. Mrs. Bennet burst into tears. My God! My son, my boy! But Mr. Bennet wasn't comforting anyone. He stared at Brody with an expression Brody had never seen before, not anger, not disappointment, but something far colder, realization. You didn't just make a mistake, he said. You built a pattern of hurting people weaker than you, a pattern we never saw, because we were too busy bragging about your trophies. Brody's throat tightened. His father continued, voice cracking for the first time. And now, all of that has come home to us. Brody's chest caved. The weight of his actions of years of cruelty hit him like a tidal wave. His facade shattered, his breath trembled, his vision blurred, and for the first time in his life, Brody Bennet cried. His mother reached for him, sobbing, but he pulled away, burying his face in his hands. The boy who ruled Riverside High was just a frightened child, in a collapsing house of lies. Brody's sobs filled the room raw, broken, helpless, as the truth finally consumed him. But the final chapter of this story wouldn't unfold here. It would take place somewhere far more symbolic, where everything had started. The gas station looked different under the soft glow of the late afternoon sun. Calm, quiet, peaceful. The same pumps, same pavement, same glass storefront, but the air felt lighter, as if the place itself had shed a heavy shadow. Malia pulled up on her motorbike, the familiar rumble settling into a low purr before she switched off the engine. She removed her helmet slowly, letting the breeze sweep across her face. This was the place where everything had begun. The insults, the fists, the weapon, the fear she refused to show. But it was also the place where she had reclaimed her voice, her strength, and her dignity. Sandra stepped out from the convenience store, coffee in hand, a knowing smile already forming. Came back for a victory lap? She teased. Malia shook her head softly. Just needed to see it again, she said. The place always looks smaller once you stop being afraid of it. Sandra nodded, her expression warm but firm. You did more than stand your ground. You showed restraint, discipline. You chose the hard path. Malia raised an eyebrow. The hard path? Self-defense, Sandra replied, not revenge. There was something incredibly grounding in the way Sandra said it, as if she were speaking not just to Malia, but to every student she had ever trained. The message was simple, powerful, and unmistakably true. Malia's eyes drifted across the station, the corner where Brody had thrown the first punch, the spot where Tyler had grabbed her wrist, the exact place where she had disarmed a metal rod with a spinning kick. She breathed out. Slow and steady, Sandra rested a hand on her shoulder. You have chosen the right path, she said gently. Self-defense, not revenge. The words settled deep in Malia's chest. For days, she had replayed the events in her mind, not the hits or the kicks, but the choices she made. She could have hurt them far worse. She could have unleashed her full strength, but she didn't, because martial arts wasn't about domination. It was about control, discipline, respect, and knowing when to stop. She walked toward Pump 3, the same pump where it had all happened. She placed her hand on the cool metal handle and paused, allowing the quiet of the moment to wash over her. In the reflection of the pump's chrome plating, she saw herself not as the scared girl they tried to intimidate, not as the fighter the internet now idolized, but as the person she was becoming, stronger, calmer, more certain of her place in the world. Sandra snapped a picture from a distance. For the studio board, she joked. Proof that my best student survived a real-world exam. Malia laughed, soft, real. It was a sound that carried healing with it. Then she noticed a small security camera above the pump, the same one that had captured everything. She turned toward it. She didn't pose. She didn't smile. She simply spoke, voice steady and resonant enough to echo across the pavement. Be strong at the right moment, she said, and the world will change. Her words lingered in the air long after she finished. A message, a promise, a truth learned through fire. Sandra joined her side, the two standing together in quiet solidarity. Malia looked back at the camera one last time. Be strong at the right moment, and the world will change. The story closed where it began. But Malia's journey was just beginning, and just like that, the boys who thought they ruled the school learned a lesson they'll never forget. Power means nothing when it stands in front of discipline, skill, and a girl who refused to break. Malia didn't fight for glory, she fought to survive, to stand tall, and to show every kid watching that self-defense isn't violence, it's protection. Now, it's your turn. What part of this story shocked you the most? Tell me in the comments below. And if you want more stories where justice hits back harder than the bullies ever could, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.